Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. And with all of this COP26 happening and climate change talks going around, I'm going to discuss how China is going to go to net zero in 2060. So part of Xi Jinping's plan is to go carbon peak in 2030 and go carbon neutral by 2060. And I'm going to discuss how this plan is going to take place and where we are right now and how it's going to be going through. So I'm going to go through a various number of articles which I found online, and I'm going to quickly go through it with you guys. So before I start, don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and comment when you can, help with algorithm. And if you really like the video, you're welcome to join my Patreon, and if you really like the video, you're welcome to buy me a coffee and support this channel. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. So basically what this article is telling me is coal and gas is still to contribute 20% of power mix in 2050. Basically, this is going to be clean coal and clean gas, which means there's going to be lots of carbon capture in these coal-fired units, because a lot of people think that coal-fired units are very dirty and stuff, create a lot of CO2, but not if you have technology such as carbon capture. If you capture all of your CO2 from these power plants, then that alleviates a lot of the pollution or the CO2 that gets released. So a lot of people don't really discuss that. So China will still have about 20% of coal power units in 2050, but most of it will be renewables, hydroelectric and nuclear as well. So let's go down further in the document, shall we? So you can see here the think tank says that by 2060 nearly 60% of China's power generation will be new energy sources, which mostly refers to renewables such as solar, wind, biomass. This is excluding hydropower, by the way, which is up from around 10.5% in 2020, according to China Electrical Council data. This is equivalent to new energy capacities of around 5.2 billion kilowatts by 2060. So the share of coal power generation will drop by 7% in 2060 and around 60.8% currently. Natural gas will drop to 3% from 7.1%. Hydro will drop to 13% from 17.9%. And nuclear will rise from 16% from 4.8%. All the absolute power demand will still grow, CSEC has projected. Whenever measuring climate change, it is very complicated because there's so many variables that you've got to consider. So, for example, in 2020, electricity generation in China went up by 298 terawatts per hour. And then in 2021, China is expected to use 6 to 7% more electricity in 2021 than last year. The China Electrical Council forecast on Tuesday, despite concerns of a new coronavirus outbreak disrupting industrial activity. China, the world's biggest economy, used 7.51 trillion kilowatts per hour last year, up 3.1% from 2019. So from 2019, power usage has gone up 3.1%, and from 2020 is gone up by 6 to 7%, and it's expected to grow more in 2021. We haven't got the exact figures for 2021 just yet, but I think it's going to be more than 6 to 7% because there was a huge coal shortage this year, and I think it's going to be probably up to 10% because with China being the manufacturing hub of the world, its exports have risen, and rest of the world has been suffering a lot from the coronavirus outbreaks. So they've been importing a lot of goods from China. So I think exports have risen in China, which means their factories are working on extra capacities, which needed extra power. And also don't forget they got rid of a lot of the Bitcoin miners as well. Bitcoin mining takes a lot of the energy as well, so they got rid of that. So that should reduce some of it. But overall, China's energy usage grows average between is grown 3.1% to 2019, 6.7% in 2020, and it's going to go probably 7% on 2021. So you can probably say average between 7% it will grow 2021, and it will keep growing 7 to 8% maybe every year after that. So it keeps growing, guys. So that's the thing. So China has to keep building more power generation units to cover the cost of more power that's required. And as more and more people come out of poverty, more people go into cities, for example, and these poor people then start affording to drive cars, and they start affording to have plasma TVs, and they afford to have computers, and and all of these gadgets, iPhones and stuff. And that means China's power capacity needs to increase even more. So all of these people that have come out of poverty over the past few years, they're going to start needing more and more power, and China's going to need a lot more power than what it has now. So yeah, it is a big task, guys. I'm not going to lie. It is a huge mission for China to get into net zero. It's not going to be easy, but it is a challenge that China will succeed in, because so far, whenever it comes to climate change, everything China has said, has done, and is pretty much leading the world at the moment with climate change right now. I mean, one of the things I'm really fascinated about is all the trees that they've been building around China, and this has been verified by NASA. China has gone from about 12% greenery to about 23% in 20-30 years, and this is going to be improving even more. They've planted billions and billions of trees, and especially near Beijing and stuff, and they're also planting trees in the desert. And this is one of the miracles. There's an area called Xie Zhenhua, and it's billions and billions of trees and greeneries they built. Used to be rotten ground, and drought, full of drought, and they had desert as well, and it's just it's absolutely beautiful right now. And this is the stuff that's been people have been doing for generations. So it's not something that's happened now. They've been doing it for generations, planting trees and trees and trees. And there's stories going around. There's some really amazing stories how CPC members who are in charge of building these forests and trees, they have to stay away from their families for years and years and years. And there's one particular guy, I heard a story about him, I can't remember the name, but he's one of the heroes. He's apparently lived away from his wife, his daughter, and he's been helping build these trees and helping these farmers and helping impoverished people build trees and stuff. And he's been staying away from his family. He's missed most of his daughter growing up and stuff. And his wife apparently thought about divorcing him so many times, and but but she said, I know he's doing it for China, for future generations. And and even he said that it's all right for us to sacrifice our lives so our children can live in lush green amazing China. So it's really kind of moving when you hear stories like that, with people sacrificing themselves just to build trees and stuff. And it's not just Xie Zhenhua, it's all over China. They're building trees along the desert, desertification. There's loads of YouTube channels and YouTube videos about it. If you search for desertification in China, and there's absolute miracle in some areas how deserts are just turning green. So it's really great, and I'm going to probably do a separate video about that another day. But let's go back to our climate change stuff. Okay, guys, let's continue. China, the second biggest economy, used 7.51 trillion kilowatts per hour of power last year, up 3.1% from 2019. The CEC also expect China to add 180 gigawatts of new power generation capacity in 2021 to push the country's total capacity to 2,370 gigawatts, up 7.7% from a year ago. Total installed non-fossil fuel capacity forecast to reach 1,000 gigawatts by the end of 2021, with 140 gigawatts being added this year, accounted for 47.3% of China's energy mix. Finally, China is scrambling to build new renewable capacity in response to President Xi's pledge to add 1,200 gigawatts of solar and wind capacity by 2030 and to bring China's carbon emissions to a peak within a decade. In 2020, it's doubled its new wind and solar power plants from a year earlier. So as you can see, China is fast tracking a lot of solar and wind power to able to get to that peak of 2030 and try and reduce that carbon footprint by 2060. In terms of solar, guys, I don't have to tell you, China is leading the world in terms of solar. It's got more solar panels coming up in China than the rest of the world put together. And this is the proof. I mean, this is the article I've just read. China leads the world in global solar. And you can see the amount of solar panels China is using compared to the rest of the world. And it's putting the rest of the world to shame. By 2024, it's going to have, if you add all of these countries together, put them in a straight line, and I'm sure China would have much more. China's graph would be much bigger, and that's going to be increasing, year by year, year by year. Every year, China, I read articles, China is adding more solar farms, adding more solar farms here, more solar farms there. It's going to be huge, guys. It's going to be huge, and with these solar farms being added year by year, and with all the grid that's going to be added, it's just going to increase it more and more. And you can see they're also adding solar farms, floating solar farms in the sea as well, because China is blessed being next to loads of rivers and next to a huge sea, South China Sea as well. And here you can see China to add 55 to 65 gigawatts of solar capacity in 2021. And that is a huge amount. That's enough to, kind of fire up the whole of UK in 1 year. All of that, it's a lot of solar power. And you can see some of the biggest solar power units in China. You got one in Wangwei, and that's 2.2 gigawatts, and Tena Desert Solar Park 1.55 gigawatts, and Datong 1.1 gigawatts, Yangshi 1 gigawatts, Longsheng, sorry, I can't say the name, but that's 850. But you can see this was in 2021 in March, and since then at least 3 or 4 big solar plants have been added, which is just as big as this capacity. And you can see some of the biggest ones here. You can see how huge it is. This is shaped like a giant panda, and this is one of the biggest solar farms in the world in Datong. And also, guys, I want to kind of show you there's another form of solar panels as well that China is using. It's called the solar. It's a new technology that's been out just a couple of years now. It uses super mirror. It's a super mirror plant where all of these solar panels basically mirror and focus light against a receiver in the middle, and that receiver basically generates power, and that power gets transferred to the rest of China using grids and things like that. So as you can see, in terms of solar, China is leading, and the same with wind as well. China has got a lot of mountains, as you know, around the center of China. And what China is utilizing is these mountains, is utilizing the west of China, which is very windy, and China is also leading in the wind side as well. So in terms of solar and wind, that's just going to increase year by year and year by year, and hopefully by 2030, there should be a huge amount of renewables that China is using, and it's going to be a very good way for China to go to carbon neutral. So this roadmap, guys, it is quite a complicated one, so I'll try to simplify the whole thing. Basically, it says it will have three phases, 21 to 2030, which is the carbon peaking phase. The deep carbonization phase is 2031 to 2050, and the zero carbon phase from 2051 to 2060. So here's the main issue, guys, that China has a problem with. China is a massive country, and most of its major cities, its mega cities, are on the east coast, and most of the solar and wind is on the west coast, near Xinjiang, and even the northern part of China as well, and also near Tibet as well. So all of the energy production is happening in the west, and all the major mega cities are on the east. So one of the things that it needs to kind of fix is the grids and the power grid, going from west to east and vice versa. And also west is also being developed as well. You got Xinjiang, and you got the BRI is going to develop Xinjiang, the west, and also the Tibet area is developing as well. So there is a big push to develop the west side of China. So all of that will need a lot of power as well. But still, China still needs a lot of power on the east coast side. So this is how China's going to be moving all of that solar and wind power all over China. It's going to be building the world's biggest supergrid. And it's basically, there's about 23 mega projects which move across provinces and things like that. Huge mega capacity grids which actually move power from one part of China to another. And having that done first is very important. And as you can see, here's a map of the grids, and you can see how some of the grids are going to be moving from west coast all the way to east coast, but that's going to obviously improve over the years as they build more and more solar and wind plants, and that's going to be moving across the country. So that is going to be very important. Obviously it's a big job because China is a huge country, but that's going to be complete mostly by 2050, and it's a huge mega project. Again, I'll do a separate video on that. So phase 1, guys, in the carbon peaking phase by 2030, 51% of the China's power demand will still be met by fossil fuels, a heavy reduction from 68% from coal and natural gas in 2020. So at the moment, China is using 68% from coal and natural gas, and that's going to go down to 51% in 2030. So how is that going to work? Basically, there's going to be increased demand of natural gas. There's pipelines already pumping gas from Russia. China has also found new gas pipelines in Xinjiang area as well. And there's also other pipelines coming from Asia as well. And so they're going to use more natural gas. In terms of coal, they're going to start using cleaner coal. And, clean as in, they'll be using carbon capture and things like that. And also they're going to phase out the old power plants and old coal power plants that that they don't need and use. So as they use more and more solar and wind power, and as those grids come into line, they're going to slowly start phasing out all of these coal power plants by 2030. And don't forget, 2030 China will also have a lot more nuclear power plants as well, plus a lot more hydroelectric power plants as well. So let's go down a bit and let's look at this graph. So this gives us a more better understanding of how things are going to go to 2060. So at the moment, you got the 2020 power mix. Coal using 60.8% of the total power usage. In 2030, they're going to use 42%. 2050 is going to go down to 13%, and 2060 is going to go down to 7%. Natural gas is going to be increasing. 2020 at the moment is 7.1%, and 2030 is going to peak at 9%, and it's going to slowly, gradually go down, because China's still going to use natural gas, but it's going to have the same amount. But the same amount will mean that it's going to stay constant, but other forms of energy is going to go higher, like nuclear, solar, wind, which means the percentage of natural gas is going to go lower, if that makes sense, guys. So natural gas, there's going to be about 3 pipelines coming from Russia, and that's going to stay constant throughout. But the only thing that's not going to be constant is the new energy mix, which means new solar, wind, and that's going to go up. As that goes up, the percentage of natural gas goes down, and that's how it is. So as more solar power come online and stuff like that. So you can see new energy is the solar and wind energy. At the moment it's 10.5. By 2030 it's going to go up to 28%. 2050 is going to go up to 53%, and by 2060 it's going to go up by 61%, and that's a huge number. And there's already loads of new mega projects happening all over the desert in China, in the western part of Xinjiang as well, plus all over China, wind and solar. Plus, China is the market leader when it comes to solar panels, and they do make the cheapest and best quality solar panels, so I don't see an issue with that increasing. And once the grid is all finished, it'll be easier to move this power across the country by 2060. So the hydro power plants, China is very lucky in a sense. It's got thousands and thousands of hydropower plants. At the moment it's 17.9%, and by 2030 it's going to go down to 13%, and it's going to stay constant at 13%, because the reason is hydropower plants, you can only go to a maximum up to a certain point. So there's another article I found here which I'm going to go through with you guys. So you can see this is the hydroelectric power in China, and these are all the hydroelectric power units that are being built or have already been built, and these are the ones which are under construction. And you can see this, the big ones is the Bahaitan Dam, which is operational next year, and the Wudong Gate Dam, which is coming online December 2021. But another massive dam that China is hoping to open is 60 gigawatt, which is going to be 3 times bigger than Three Gorges Dam, and that's going to be on the Tibetan River, close to the Indian border, and that's going to create a huge amount of power. But the problem with that is it's in a fault line where there's a lot of earthquakes, and plus it's very difficult to build along that side as well. So it's going to take quite a number of years before that comes online. But once it does come online, it's going to be 3 times the size of Three Gorges Dam. As you can see, Three Gorges Dam makes 22,500 megawatts of energy, and this new dam is going to single-handedly do 3 times as much. And so you can see all of these power plants coming online as well. And this will give you more of an understanding about the hydroelectric powers of China for today. So China today accounts for about 17% of total electric power capacity. According to IHA's 2020 Power Status Report, the total hydropower capacity reached 356 gigawatts in 2019, and a further 4.2 gigawatts capacity was added, with an estimated hydropower generation reach 1,302 terawatts per hour. The total hydropower potential is estimated at 600 gigawatts. So that's the potential. If China builds all of the power plants in this list, plus the additional one which I've talked about in Tibet, which is 3 times the size of Three Gorges, the total power capacity would be 600 gigawatts, and that's going to stay constant, guys. That's going to stay as it is. It's not going to move, and that's the reason why hydropower will stay constant. Once China reaches its potential, it's going to stay at 13%. So that's going to stay at 13%, and even it might even go lower because as the new energy stuff gets higher and higher, there'll be, the hydroelectric stuff percentage will get lower as well. Plus, if the world heats up, say 1.5% or 2%, the world will heat up, which means there's going to be a lot more droughts, and there's going to be a lot more issues with water and rivers around the world, and especially around the rivers around China. So that could even reduce as well. So don't forget. Nuclear power plants is something that's going to be improving a hell of a lot. China is having a huge push of nuclear power plants at the moment, which I'm going to explain in a bit. And in 2020, it's 4.8% of the total power. By 2030, it's going to be 7%. 2050 is going to be 14%. And 2060 is going to be 16%. And China is going to have more power plants than the whole world put together once it's complete. It's going to have more power plants than the US and many European countries put together. So it's going to be huge amounts of nuclear power plants coming online. This article shows all the nuclear power plants that are online at the moment and the ones still under construction. As you can see, these are the big list of power plants that are currently online. There's these reactors which are under constructions, and these reactors which are planned, and there are a lot. Plus, these are old traditional nuclear power plants. China is also researching other nuclear stuff such as thorium power plants as well, and they're also researching fusion, and fusion hopefully should be ready between 10 to 20 years. So hopefully by then they will have that, which will even reduce even more carbon in the atmosphere, because fusion is a completely new form of nuclear power which doesn't require any nuclear waste. It's the same power that powers up the sun. So you can get immense amount of fusion power, but that's still in the research stage as well. And the same with thorium. Thorium is a very clean form of energy, and it doesn't need to be around water, or doesn't need to be around the sea, because a lot of these power plants need water coolants. So thorium power plants can be built everywhere, including the desert and other places. It doesn't need to be around water. So that's another good clean source of energy once China finishes the thorium research. Just to give you the latest on that stuff, you can see China's artificial sun has just smashed the fusion world record, but it's still another 10-20 years away, still a long way to go. And also you can see China's prepares to test thorium fueled nuclear reactor as well. So that's going to be happening very soon, and hopefully we should see some thorium reactors starting over the next few years. And also Russia's building a few nuclear power plants for China as well. So there should be a lot of nuclear power plants coming online over the next few years.